How much do you expect from yourself today? Some people wake up and expect nothing. Others wake up and expect everything. I always expect way too much. I was out walking trying to clear my head, but my mind was far from clear. It felt heavy with the weight of all the tasks that I'd set myself for that day. No one had even asked me to do these tasks. There was no boss, no deadline. It was all me. I set myself an impossible standard and punished myself for not finishing my list. Whether you're the type of person who avoids expectations entirely, or the type of person who drowns in it, I think there's something for both of us to learn from here. Because the weight on my mind wasn't the large list of tasks that I had set myself for that day, it was the expectations behind it. For me, these expectations are always internal. No one's looking over my shoulder checking if I'm still working, shouting at me to hurry up. It's just myself saying these things, expecting myself to somehow always do better, to hit some imaginary mark that I've created without even noticing. That's probably why I've always been drawn to stuff like skateboarding, activities where it's just me versus me. No teammates, no scoreboard, no coach screaming from the sidelines. Just me, pushing myself, trying to be better than I was yesterday. But sometimes that mindset sucks all the enjoyment out of things. And if you're still here, it probably means that you may have felt this before. If so, consider subscribing. We're building an honest community here, and it would mean a lot to me. There's a cycle to this, and I've talked about this cycle before because honestly, it's everywhere in my life. Skateboarding, powerlifting, gaming, creative projects. It always starts from a place of enjoyment, doing something just because I like it. But at some point, every single time in fact, it flips. It becomes about progress, performance, and not falling behind. And when inevitably I can't keep up with these expectations, I quietly turn on myself. I stop feeling proud and start feeling like I'm failing at something that no one asked me to succeed at. I become my own worst enemy. For over a year now, I've always had at least a month's worth of videos scheduled ahead of time on this very YouTube channel. Not because anyone told me to do it, but because it made me feel safe. It's like an obsession. My hyper-focus kicks in and totally consumes me. It happens with skateboarding, with games like Counter-Strike and StarCraft. There's always room to be better. There's always mistakes to mull over in my mind. I'm never good enough. And right now, that obsession is content creation. I wake up thinking about it. I plan my day around it, squeeze as much time as I can spare towards it. And if I'm not actively working, I'm still thinking about it. I could be trying to relax, trying to sleep, cook food, seeing friends, but all my brain does is switch back to saying things like, write this idea down. I need to get home as fast as possible so I can work on this video. And the pressure doesn't only build when I'm overwhelmed with work, which is a lot of the time, but it also kicks in during my downtime. After a heavy period of work, if there's a sudden drop-off, I pour all of my leftover energy into something like World of Warcraft. But it's never casual. I end up obsessing, and I let myself turn what should be downtime into another job. And when that phase finally passes, it's like waking up with a hangover. I feel guilty, like I've wasted all that time, even though all I was really doing was decompressing by swapping one obsession for another. Most mornings, I like to go with a walk with my wife to escape the house for a bit. It's supposed to be a break, a reset from thinking entirely about work. But it never lasts for long. I can't switch off. We'll be walking and I'll be trapped inside of my own head, thinking about all of the unfinished scripts I've still got to work on, but edits that I need to do, plans that I have for the rest of that day. Joe might reach for my hand or share a funny story from work, but I'm barely there. It's not because I don't care, because I do, but my brain feels overloaded, like a browser with 100 tabs open, and I'm desperately trying to plan to close them. Fortunately, she understands because she's known me forever, but sometimes I think, if I was with someone who didn't have that history with me, it would look awful, like I didn't care at all. And honestly, that's the part that I struggle with the most. The stress can hit my body hard as well. I've got ulcerative colitis, and when I push myself too far, I literally see the results. Blood in the toilet, gut pain, a feeling of pressure around my heart. This can feel like a message from my body to slow down, but I struggle to listen. I may take my foot off the gas for a short time while I consider the real impact of what I'm doing, but as soon as I get distracted, I drift straight back into my tasks, into the stress of it all. A large part of this stress is my own self-imposed schedule. I've created a routine to keep myself functioning, but now it often feels like a prison. Before all of this self-imposed structure, my life was messy. I'd sleep when I felt like it, work sporadically. I had fewer expectations, and honestly, I think that life felt just a little bit lighter. I had less self-expectations as well, but suddenly everything changed. I know I've mentioned my hospital stay before, but this seriously was when my life shifted. It took something terrible for me to make real change in my life. I finally had energy, real sleep, direction of what I wanted, so I clung to it, built a system around it. But now that very system has shackled me. Missing a meal makes me feel anxious. Going to bed late makes me worry about tomorrow. Even tiny disruptions can feel catastrophic. I know that logically it's never as bad as I think it is, but emotionally, I spiral away. So why do I do this? Honestly, I think it's about that feeling of validation, a sense of control over my life. I want to feel like I'm succeeding at something and progressing in any sort of way. There's no school, no grades, no one to say that you've done enough. So I invent metrics, a schedule, and perhaps impossible expectations, which can then lead me to punish myself when I inevitably fall short. And it's about that sense of control too, when everything like money, health, the state of the world can feel so out of control. I clamp down hard on the one thing that I can manage, which is myself. I won't lie, this relentless pursuit to be better and follow my schedule has led me to doing more than I ever imagined I thought that I could. I've made far more videos than I ever imagined I would. I've managed to produce work that I'm proud of for others. But this pursuit can easily lead to making everything worse too. I saw this clearly when I played competitive games like Counter-Strike or StarCraft. I would obsess over every mistake, every missed shot. I would immediately react with anger at myself for not doing better. Then I would start telling myself things like I just need to react faster, aim better. I would tell myself if I was better in that moment, I would not have missed that shot, and perhaps we would have won that round. But it's the exact same loop again. Unrealistic expectations, disappointment, then self-punishment. Sometimes I'll look at a younger version of myself and feel frustrated. Why didn't you work harder? Why didn't you care more? But judging the past me by today's standards is ridiculous. I'm not the same person anymore, and I wouldn't be who I am today without the Jake of yesterday. I heard this quote recently, and I think it might have been from a YouTube video. But if you wouldn't accept this level of work from an employee, why would you accept it from yourself? In other words, if you find yourself slacking when striving to work towards something, perhaps your own business, would you find yourself annoyed if someone that you had employed was producing the same level of work? Would you want them to do more? While this can be motivation in itself to kickstart some work, what if the opposite was also true? What if I'm demanding more from myself than I'd ever ask from anyone else? Would I yell at a friend for working late, skipping a workout, or eating a dinner 30 minutes late? Obviously not. Yet I do it to myself every single day. So how do I break this cycle? Honestly, the only thing that I find really helps is space, downtime, getting away physically from your usual work environment. Writing also helps too. Once it's out of my head onto paper, it stops swirling around so much in my head. Sometimes though, I just have to get stuff done to quiet the noise. But that can be a trap in itself, as there's always something else to do. I'm not pretending to have figured this out. I want to be ambitious, to improve, to grow. And the Jake of yesterday would be shocked at the commitment and dedication I try to give to my work. But along the way, those goals got wrapped up in feelings of guilt and shame. So maybe I shouldn't be asking myself, how much do you expect from yourself today? Maybe I should be asking, am I just being an arsehole to myself at this point? I've talked about overthinking and burnout before, and they feed off this exact mindset. And you can find that here. Thanks for listening.